So the questions that we're going to be looking at are the first two questions on the America paper, which are based on two interpretations. So you get one question, which is asking you to compare how the interpretations are different, and you get a second question, which asks you to explain why it is that they're different. So the mark scheme is on the slide. You can see that for a level one, you would just be identifying points and making statements about the interpretations. To get into level two, you have to be explaining your answers. So if you identify one difference and you explain that, you can get a 3 out of 4. If you identify two clear differences and explain them both, that's what will get you a 4 out of 4. So the interpretations that you're going to be looking at for this example are on the screen. If you want to read through those in your own time, then pause this video now. I've put on the next slide what I would just do when I get given two interpretations. And you can see that I've highlighted in one different colour the provenance of the source. So this is the background of that source, where it's come from, who's written it, when they've written it. And I would use that information to answer question 2, which is why are they different? In the yellow, you can see that I've highlighted what the source is saying. So this is the content of the source, and this is what I would talk about for question 1. So that's what are they saying that is different. So you'll see that I've just annotated a few things around the interpretations, and you'll see in the middle here, I have just got the 3 things or the 4 things I would consider when discussing why they're different. So you need to look at the date. Are they written at different times, and would that affect their opinion? Are they written by different people? So is the author different, and would that affect their opinion? And also, what is their purpose? What type of source is this? And would that kind of shape their opinion and what they're saying? So you'll see that I've said for interpretation A, I noticed that this is a book which is written by a woman who campaigns for the rights of women. So I've said that this is a book about what life was like for them. So the purpose is to educate. I've also said that this woman would be somebody who has spent a lot of time with women in working class or lower class families, and that might shape her opinion somehow. Whereas for interpretation B, you'll see that I've highlighted that this author is a novelist. So his purpose is to write and sell books and to entertain people. So that might shape his opinion and views. I've also said that this is a man who is described as a rich playboy. So it shows that he's got money, he's middle class, and he's been able to enjoy this kind of lavish lifestyle in the boom. It also says that his wife Zelda was the first American flapper. So I've annotated that he's somebody that has been able to socialize and has spent a lot of time with flappers. So the content of the sources are very different. I've noticed that for interpretation A, the source is really saying that not all women could afford these luxuries. It's saying it was confusing to read adverts in magazines that showed all of these new consumer goods. These women weren't women that had lots of free money. They had to work in order to earn more money for their families because the majority of them were wives of labourers or unskilled workers who wouldn't have got a big paycheck. I've said that interpretation B is very different because it's talking about kind of the fun side of the 1920s, and it's talking about how people would spend their money. It specifically mentions flappers, who we know are young middle class women who live in urban areas, so the cities. And it's talking about how they would eat, drink, and be merry. So it's suggesting that these women have lots of free time to enjoy this luxury lifestyle in America. So, the questions that we are looking at are question 1, which is how do they differ? So, all we need to talk about for this is what the sources are saying. So, what are they saying and how is that different? Some misconceptions with this question is that you should quote the interpretation. Well, you do definitely not want to quote the interpretation. You should explain it in your own words. If you just quote the source, it doesn't show the examiner that you fully understand it. So you should be paraphrasing it and writing it in your own words. Some students also are under the impression that you need to write about the two interpretations separately. So they think interpretation A needs one paragraph and interpretation B needs another. That's definitely not what you want to do for this question. You want to talk about them together, you want to compare them. So one paragraph should be on one difference and then explain it. And then your second paragraph should be on a second difference and then explain that one too. So I've got a model answer on the screen here. It says interpretation A focuses on the lives of women in rural areas and the wives of labourers, and it makes the point that they are not just housewives and mothers, but they undertake all different kinds of paid work for their families. The source suggests that for many women, life is a struggle to make ends meet and to just afford the basic needs of a family. Whereas B talks about overindulgence and makes no mention of any work, and instead it focuses on women's leisure time and the fun that they have. So it's directly comparing those two interpretations and what they say kind of the main focus of women's lives was. The second difference is in paragraph 2, which says, furthermore, the sources are looking at different types of women. While A is talking about the working class, poorer women, B is looking at richer, middle class flappers. Women in the rural areas may not have had access to or had the income to purchase new consumer goods to ease responsibilities in the home, whereas the middle class women would have been able to afford these luxuries and consumer goods to make their lives easier. So you'll see that's two clear paragraphs on two differences with evidence and explanations for both interpretation A and B. So that would have been a 4 out of 4 for question 1. Question 2, so why would these authors have different opinions? The same structure for question 1. So the first paragraph talks about the fact that they're different because of the authors. It says that Doris Fleischmann is interested in women's rights, and so she's looking at the unfairness and difficulties in women's lives. Fleischmann, as a women's rights campaigner, would have spent time with women struggling for greater freedom or equality, whereas Fitzgerald is interested in telling the story of dazzling flappers and his life. Fitzgerald was rich, so we know that he could see the flapper style and behaviours in his everyday life. So their experiences would have made them have very different opinions of what life was like. The second reason is that they're different because of their purpose. We know that Fleischmann has written a book, and this seems to have the purpose of informing readers of the struggles of women in the 20s, so it will focus on the more negative aspects of people's lives. Whereas Fitzgerald's magazine article is written to entertain and also to encourage people to buy his magazine and read his stories, so it is more sensational and shocking. We know that both sources are written in the 30s, but they could reflect very different personal experiences of their authors. So, again, same structure, two paragraphs with two reasons why these sources are different, and explanation for both interpretation A and B. And again, this would be a 4 out of 4 answer for question 2.